You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 274. Today is Sunday, August 10th, 2014, and my name is Steve. No Hammy tonight, but I am joined by Curtis, so let's get to it, Kurt. In tonight's show, we'll talk about what part of the team is responsible for these mediocre results. We'll talk about Fredi's quotes about leadership in the locker room and also Mike Minor's return to the field in the upcoming Dodgers series. But first, Kurt, so heading into this Washington series, after two more depressing losses on the West Coast, you know, La Stella's awful error Tuesday in Seattle, and then Tehran with a 3-run lead, blowing it and just imploding, giving up, I think, like 4 runs. That next inning. I'd not been so down about the team in a long time. So where was your head at heading into the start of the, Washington series this Friday?
Completely on thinking of how long it was until the Falcon season started. I don't, even with this series, it's funny. I mean, I picked them to win one game in this series last week, but beating Strasburg, that meant nothing to me.
Because we always beat
Strasburg. And frankly, if we had swept the Nationals, it wouldn't have really meant all that much to me. I know that small window that it would have meant something because we would have been a game and a half back or whatever it would have been if we had been able to sweep them. But playing Washington now is not a barometer of what's going on with the team at all because of the success that we've had against them.
Just because of the weird relationship with Washington?
Absolutely. And maybe it would have been different if we had lost like 15-0 every single game.
Sure.
Maybe that would have.
But what if we'd
left
won
an impression
15-0 every single game?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But just the way that these games have played out so far, it does nothing to change any feeling I have about the team and where they're going from this point out.
Well, it's amazing, like how quickly I turned after seeing 3 home runs and Santana dominating, until he didn't Friday night. But I was like, yeah, oh my God, we're going to sweep this series, and I could, and then Saturday comes, and it's just every piece of this long suffering plot this season, of no offense, no hitting with runners in scoring position, shaky bullpen, wasted good start by a starter. Like I felt foolish for what I was thinking Saturday morning after that win.
Yeah, I mean it's the 2014 Braves.
yeah, and it only gets brought home stronger with the first 6 outs in tonight's game being via strikeout.
Right.
So what's your postseason hope meter, Kurt, at this point?
0.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, I stand by my prediction of 81 wins this season, and maybe that's a little strong. I mean, this week has not really changed anything to think that they're going to be way below 500 in these final 50 games.
Well, and just looking at the teams, the wildcard teams that they're up against.
They're third or fourth in the wildcard race, right?
Yeah, they're 2.5 games back currently. I think the Cardinals were the only team that won. The other teams lost.
But. Well, but the games back in the wild card, well, in any race, but the games back is almost less important in some ways than how many teams you have to jump frog. There's so much out of your control.
I like that jump frog.
Did I say jump frog?
To coin a phrase.
Yes. Well, that's much harder than a leapfrog.
It is true.
That's really what a situation they have in front of them. All right, so Kurt, to steal from a Jeff Schultz column earlier this week, he had a poll out there about, at whose collective feet do you lay the blame about the mediocre results this season. So let's talk about that. And our choices are the players, Fredi and his staff, or the front office. So where do you look as you explain this season?
And I will add going into this answer that these are all razor thin. It's a matter of 35, 34, 33, if that is even the right math. But yes, I start at the top. I start at Frank Wren. He's the one that constructed this team. And outside of the starting pitching, which I don't even know that I really give him credit for. Harang obviously has been a miracle, but if you would have tell me that they expected this out of Harang, it was total luck that move happened. They did make the move, and I will give them credit for that. But it's total luck that
but it was total insurance and just there for. I mean, we all thought it would be Harang for the first 2.5 weeks until Santana was ready.
Until Gavin Floyd got back too.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, there was no long-term expectation, and now he's your stopper.
It's so crazy.
So the offense that is this offense that he's constructed is just awful, year after year after year now. And frankly, B.J. Upton, it really doesn't need to go that much farther than B.J. Upton. You can look at what B.J. Upton did the last few years in Tampa, and if that guy with that career deserved to be the highest person to ever wear an Atlanta Braves uniform, you could have had Michael Bourne for half the money with twice the productivity and just kept him on your team. He has crippled this team through moves like that one, through some silly moves to shore up starting pitching. It starts with him and then it works its way down from there. And Fredi is not off the hook, and the players are certainly not off the hook for their performances, but it starts to me with Frank Wren.
Yeah, I mean, the BJ signing clearly disastrous and will hamstring the team budget-wise for 3 more years until, in 2016 when they DFA him with a 1.5 years left like they did with Ugla. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
Do you see any scenario where BJ rediscovers it?
I do not. And the worst part about that is we're still going to have to watch him play.
What do you mean, on this team we're going to have to watch him play?
Despite that clarity, he is still going to be in the lineup, penciled in every single day because of the fact that he's owed so much money, and they are not willing to sit that guy when he's making that much money.
Yeah, I mean, stepping back a little bit, the lineup construction is questionable, right? And it worked to some degree. Well, not to some degree. I mean, the team won 96 games last year. We were able to overcome all that because we led the league in home runs. You've got the high strikeouts. You've got 3 guys that don't walk at all, right? In Gaddis, Johnson, and Simmons. Plus the power outage. I mean, the team is... I had this written down. The team is 10th in the league this year in home runs. They were 6th in OBP last year, and they're tied. They're in a 3-way tie for OBP in the National League with the Mets in Arizona. You don't want the Mets in Arizona for anything.
2 of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
And if that would be one thing if all your success wasn't so tied into that factor. The team is 40-17 when they hit a home run. Yeah.
Hey, Justin just hit a home run.
Speaking of.
Yeah, but, at the end of the day, if I had to pick one, I pick the players, right? Fredi not performing. Jason's been amazing, but inconsistent at the plate. Simmons not having a great year at the plate.
All those guys in the bullpen.
All the guys in the bullpen. We got a great email from a listener named Guy about the offensive woes, and he had a lot of questions about, Walker and Fletcher and the hitting coaches and how come more is not made of them. And I remember a couple tweets from DOB the last couple of weeks talking about he had talked to baseball folks outside of the organization saying that Walker and Fletcher say all the right things and do, and coach in all the right ways. And there are guys on this team who just don't hear it or won't make changes. And you got to figure that's BJ and that was Ugla. Maybe it's even Simmons who falls over every time he swings the bat.
Right.
So, yes, Frank put together these pieces, and they're not the right pieces. You've got a manager in Fredi who is a bad X's and O's guy. I mean, we've talked about it all season. The BJ at the 1, I mean, I still can't, I just, it makes me just sort of see white. I just can't even, I just don't know. I just can't see a reason why he didn't. And he had come to his senses this week and taken him out in the Seattle series. How do you put your worst hitter and the league's worst hitter? This is the league's worst hitter in BJ Upton. And you give him the most at-bats.
And that's not for a week that he's been the league's worst hitter.
Right.
This is for 2 years. He has been the league's worst hitter.
It's really unbelievable.
There is nothing fresh about it. There is nothing that's going to change overnight about this, And the only reason I think that he's out of the 1 in Seattle is because they got a DH.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that Fredi sat him tonight. Did you see last night? Now, I didn't stay up and watch the game, but reading the recap today, Washington intentionally walked Ramiro Pena, who's been terrible this year. Terrible. To get to BJ.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, yeah. So it is a perfect storm of a bunch of pieces that don't work together, a guy that doesn't know how to move those chess pieces around, and then most of the team underperforming.
And we're locked into it. That's the other thing. I mean, going into next year, there are no changes that are going to be made. Right?
Yeah.
La Stella. You're going to get a full season of La Stella. That's the only thing, unless they trade Hayward in this offseason.
Which, I mean, that's really it's about the only piece they have, other than some starting pitching. But
right.
You don't have a lot of starting pitching. You need Hale next year. I mean, you're going to sign Harang to another year? Maybe. Maybe you do for insurance, but you can't expect that again.
Yeah, I was about to say, you think you're getting that production for 2 years in a row? You're crazy.
Santana will be gone. I think they would be crazy to make a qualifying offer for Santana, right? It was 14 this year. Figure it's 15 next year. If you're Santana, given the up and down season he's had, you take that money.
Right.
And that would not be good for the Braves.
No. Because you're still paying Dan Ugla on top of everything else.
Right, yeah.
So that makes it any sort of bullpen acquisitions that you could make limited. I guess Westbrook, he's signed through next year. So you do have that. The guy from the Cubs, isn't that his name?
No, Russell. You're thinking of football, right?
Oh, maybe so.
Yeah, Russell. Yes,
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook. We have him for next year as well. Well, the bullpen, frankly, that's one thing that Wren has done very well. Is find bullpen pieces. Now, clearly, it hasn't worked out well this year, but you can relatively cheaply find some sixth inning and seventh inning guys.
Sure, and I mean, there's no way that you would say, okay, I'm getting rid of David Carpenter and Avalon and Vivaro after the seasons they had last year. I mean, you have to go in expecting that you're going to get production out of those guys. So I don't blame Frank Wren for those types of moves.
Sure,
it's the bigger, more glaring moves that he bears responsibility for.
And I'm really okay with all of the extensions except for the Chris Johnson one. I wasn't okay with it when it happened, and it looks even worse now.
I agree.
All right, so let's turn this around, Kurt, and share a positive of the week, because maybe I get the feeling we're going to need to do this the rest of the season to offset the rest of what we talk about down the stretch. So what is your positive of the week?
It's the guy we've talked about a lot. It's Aaron Harang last night pitching a great game. I mean, they ended up leaving 11 on base and couldn't get I should just record this. Couldn't get a big hit when they needed it. But, I mean, the guy every single time. I mean, yeah, he's had a couple of bad starts, but he's just consistent, but probably more consistent than any guy that they've got on the team. I mean, he is the guy that goes out there and gives you quality start after quality start, and even better than quality starts a lot of the times. He gives you really dominating starts. So he's miraculous. And I mean, it's a shame that he lost that game last night. But I mean, there's been so many losses for Braves starters. There was a stat I saw the other day, and the Braves have like 20 more quality starts than the next team, which I think is San Francisco. And you look where San Francisco is, and look where the Braves are.
Yeah, I think we're 2 games over 500 right now. Which is insane with all the great starting pitching we've gotten. I mean, imagine if we just had a mediocre offense. We'd be 6 games up.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a team that the best batting average on the team is .288.
I mean, Harang should be in the conversation for team MVP.
Absolutely.
Which, again, is impossible, and yet
yes,
absolutely true. So mine will be Hayward. I mean, Hayward, since he came back from his back spasms when he missed a couple of games, not counting tonight, his slash line is .417 batting average, .444 on base, .625 slugging. And he just continues to amaze in the outfield, of course.
I smell an SITD there.
All right, so a couple quick announcements, Kurt. First, all of our new shows are also available on our new YouTube channel, which you can search. Going out to YouTube, search on Atlanta Baseball Talk. And if you would subscribe, that'd be great. It's just another way to ensure you don't miss any shows. We also have a new Facebook fan page. So go out there and like us and, post some comments, get in on the conversation there. It's at facebook.com/Atlanta Baseball Talk. All right, Kurt, let's move on to fair or foul, where I throw something out there. You agree with it fair or disagree with it foul. So on Friday or Saturday, DOB had an article in the AJC about a lack of leadership in the clubhouse this year with the departure of, the guys like Hudson and McCann and even, in years, it's been a slow trickle out the door, Chipper and Hinsky and all those guys.
Prado,
right. So here's a quote from Fredi on this topic. He said, quote, "I don't manage the clubhouse any differently. It's nice to have that, but how many teams have that? Have that one guy." So, Kurt, fair or foul, do you think that quote is a big deal?
Big fair. It frightens me. It saddens me. The more to that conversation is he talks about basically choosing Freddie Freeman as the guy he thinks should be the leader of the team. And at this point, it seems that Freddie Freeman does not have that characteristic, that domineering Chipper Jones type of personality where he gets in people's faces and kicks them in the butt when they need to be kicked. That's just not the type of guy he is. That's nothing against him. Everybody is not an alpha dog. So, but the fact that he is not himself filling that void when the players are not, when they talk about, Jared Laird or Harang, well, those are not the guys that are regular guys. Those are not your top of the scorecard guys, the guys on the cover of your programs every week. So it's tough to look at Harang and Laird, and God bless that they're filling that void. But yeah, I mean, he has got to do something. And this team seems so rudderless that they just kind of are just, Cork was talking about it tonight. Oh, I bet that was a long flight home and all the player conversations. And I'm thinking, I didn't hear anything about that.
So if continuing to run BJ out there in the one is the number one thing I can't get my head around, this quote is 1A. Right? Freddie is not a good X's and O's guy, but he's supposed to be a great clubhouse buddy with the players, keep the players like how he acknowledges the void and then acknowledges he's doing nothing about it. Like, I understand that there is gravitas of a veteran player in the clubhouse, like a Chipper, like a Hudson, that's a void that Freddie can't fill. But there is still a leadership void, and who better, since there's no one to do it? Freeman's not that kind of guy. Hayward is out the door next year. There's no one else even close to that. Freddie has got to fill that void. And to come out and publicly say, no, not doing anything different, like it's insane. It's another thing I really just can't understand.
Well, especially when your team is just this flat.
Right.
and has been this flat for 3 months.
Flat, if they were flat, Kurt, they'd at least have a couple more wins. They're less than flat. They're concave at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Woo.
Something a little more
Steve
fun.
is fired up.
I'm so fun. I just something snapped in me on Friday when BJ was back in the one, and I really haven't recovered.
Well, and the sad part is that we're stuck with him too.
Right. So the undisclosed, years and dollar amount extension that he got this year.
Right. Yeah. And it's just the way that this team works. I mean, they're just not the type of team that will make a decision to cut a dude loose like that.
And some of that is good. Like, that's not all bad, right?
I totally agree. I like consistency, but I also like winning.
Right. Now, again, I think we talked about this last week or the week before. If this team ends up with 78 wins this year, there's going to be conversations about it. It's not going to be that cut and dry. No, we don't fire people.
But, I mean, do you think the conversations are ones that we have or that Jeff Schultz or Mark Bradley has?
No, I mean the front office. I mean, there will really be conversations about Fredi and Wren if this team doesn't break the 80s. Or if they're in the low 80s and wins. Believe it.
Yeah. And please don't write in and tell me how many games they won last year. I don't care. I know how many games they won last year. That was in spite of Fredi Gonzalez.
All right, so next fair or foul. So, video hit the internet last night of showing Bryce Harper as he's walking up to the left-hand batter's box, sort of slowly dragging his foot across the A in the dirt behind the catcher and the ump. So, fair or foul, this is a big deal.
I think it's a sad indictment of who this guy is. I don't know that it's a big deal because it's just who he is.
All right, so fair or foul, this annoys you.
Yes, it annoys me. And it just shows what a total jerk he is. They were talking about him tonight, too, and it's like, oh, he's only 21. He's not 7. He's 21 years old. He's a man,
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's childish. It's petulant. It's every other word that you can throw out there. It's pathetic is what it is. Yeah, you're getting booed because you're a jerk. You're going to get booed, especially at your biggest rival. And your response is to do something like that. Your response should be to get a hit, And Kruk said it tonight. It's like if the guy's hitting 350, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's like Yasiel Puig, but he's batting 250. So there's something bigger there, which is that he's a child.
So, I don't really disagree with everything you're saying. On the other hand, they are rivals, and I think it's kind of fun. Like, it's kind of like 70s baseball, where they really didn't like each other. And I can only assume that that's at the root of it. So, I don't really have a big deal about it. I think it's kind of funny. I think that Harper is clearly immature and kind of a jerk. But as these things go, that one's kind of fun to me. All right, Kurt, let's play over-under, and let's focus on Mike Minor's triumphant return to the starting rotation. He'll get a start in the Dodgers series this coming Tuesday after his start was skipped in the rotation this week. So we can only hope, right, that he's been diligently watching video with Roger and I can't wait for the article tomorrow in the AJC about the changes he's made in his mechanics that are going to fix everything. So let's start with earned runs allowed in his start this coming Tuesday. Over under 4.
I'm going to go over.
What do you think?
Sadly, I'll say 5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think too. All right, innings pitched by Minor in his start, 4 2/3.
I'll go 5 on this one too.
All right, I'll go under. I think it's going to be 4 1/3 because the wheels are going to come off. Like, I have no faith that Minor's figuring anything out this year anyway.
I'm certainly not jumping the gun here, not thinking that this is. We surely don't think that this is going to be Tommy Hanson, JJ, Horacio Ramirez, Chuck James, whoever, any of these other pitchers that we saw that had like a year and a half of just brilliance and then just completely fell apart.
I do. No, I have no faith in Minor anymore. because it just happens on this team. I mean, J.J. and Hansen particularly. I don't know. Was Chuck James ever really brilliant?
No, I thought he had his first full year. I don't know. I don't have his stats in front of me, but it was a good, decent for a rookie or a guy. Yeah, I mean, he had a solid season. Damian Moss. I mean, there's so many guys that the Braves have trotted out that had great or above serviceable years as young pitchers, and then just completely collapsed and were never heard from again.
I mean, JJ and Hansen should be part of this rotation still. You know? They really should have been. And so, no, I have no faith in Minor. I really don't. All right, Kurt, let's move on to Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. But let's check back on last week. So, Kurt, you predicted Hayward would hit .310 with 4 doubles. Heading into the game tonight, he's at .333 with 2 doubles. So, not bad, not bad.
Chuck James in 2006 went 11-4.
What was his ERA? Do you have
3.78.
Yeah. Not bad. Not bad. Yeah. All right. Hammy predicted Justin would go 2 homers, .290 batting average. Heading into tonight, he had a .143 batting average, so that's up a little, and he has his 2 homers. And I predicted that BJ would not bat leadoff in any game this week.
Whoopee.
And even though I should have been right, I was not right. So, Kurt, I'm giving it to you.
As you should.
Yeah, because while Hammy hit the home runs, you were much closer on the average. So you take the lead in August with 1 victory. All right, so let's check in on our listener-submitted shots in the dark for the past week. Michael Lindbaum on Twitter, he predicted Hayward and Freeman would bat .350, .450, .500 slash line with 10 RBI. Hayward's at .333, .353, .400. And Freeman's at .467. God, Freeman's had a nice week, and he already has a single tonight. .529, .800. At Hickox_10 said the Braves would score less than 10 total runs this week. The team is at 14 and counting right now. And also on Twitter, I don't know how to pronounce this guy, Giddy Poe. The Braves go 4-1 and score 20 runs with 2 shutouts this week. Oh, if it were only true. So we're 1-3 so far. No shutouts. So we'll give it to Michael Lindbaum. He was absolutely the closest there. All right, so we're asking for listener shots in the dark. We'll pick our favorite runs. We'll track it during the week and discuss it on the show. Submit them by Twitter or Facebook and use the hashtag ABTSITD. Now submit them before first pitch this Monday to be in the running. All right, so Kurt, what's your shot in the dark for this week?
I'm going to go with Harang. I've talked about him a lot. 7 innings, 2 runs.
So doesn't Harang do that every time out, really, Kurt? How much of a shot in the dark is this? Sorry to steamroll you like this. But...
You complain about me every single week when I do these. You're just jealous that I'm dominating this tournament. And
well, I think there's a correlation between...
That I'm picking easy ones?
Yes, the wussy predictions. I'm just saying. I mean, look,
right.
if you can sleep tonight about it, that's fine.
I sleep like a baby every night.
Okay.
Hey, all right, fine. 8 innings, 1 run.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so Hammy has predicted that all the starters will give up only 3 or less runs the whole week, even the ones pitching twice, which makes Hammy's a shot in the impossible, given that Minor has 2 starts this week. And my prediction this week is we're going to lose 4 games in the standings. I think the wheels come off this week, more so.
We're going to be like 7 games out.
Yeah. Well,
you the guy who 2 weeks ago was it that we would be up 3 weeks ago? We would be up 3 games on the Nationals by the end of the week.
Well, that was the time to really make our move, and we didn't. So what can I say? All right. So the week ahead, Kurt, it's a tough one. 7 at home, 4 against the Dodgers, and 3 against the A's. So, and really, this could be the 2 teams in the World Series this year. I mean, the Dodgers, they have some back-end rotation problems, but the Dodgers are as good as anybody in the National League, and the A's really are the class of the American League.
Yeah, and when the Dodgers starters go 8 innings against us and give up 1 or no runs, it really don't have to worry about the back end of their bullpen too much.
Well, no, I was talking about their starters. I mean, the starter, the back end of the starting rotation's a little rough, and now Beckett went on the DL.
Well, but they signed what's-his-face from Philadelphia, who totally dominated us, one of the starts that he pitched against us, Roberto Hernandez.
Roberto Hernandez, we will see him. All right, so game one is Tehran versus Dan Herron. That is, in his 4.57 ERA. He's not been so good this year.
Yeah, but again, I hate to say this jokingly and seriously every single week. Braves killer. Look at his stats against the Braves. I mean, even when he was pitching for Washington a couple of years ago, and he was awful. We voted the worst starting pitcher in the National League by some publication. He went out and totally dominated the Braves. So.
All right, next is Minor Ryu with his 3.21 ERA. Scary one there. Next up, Santana versus, as you said, newly acquired Roberto Hernandez from the Phillies. He gave up 5 against us in one game, but 2 against us in the other.
See?
Yep. And then the final game of the Dodgers series is Harang versus Greinke. All right, so on to the Oakland series, Wood versus Jason Hamill. He's one of those pitchers that the A's acquired from the Cubs, and he had been amazing with the Cubs.
Yeah, he's been terrible as an A.
And then was terrible except for his last start where he threw 7 shutout innings. So he may be getting healthy just in time.
Whee!
Yeah. So then it's Tehran Sonny Gray with his 2.87 ERA.
That sounds like a sportscaster or something like that, doesn't it? Porn actor or something.
And then we finish up with minor John Lester, the new ace of the staff for the A's.
Sweet.
And his 2.44 ERA. It's another Sunday night ESPN game next week. So, Kurt, 7 tough ones. What's your prediction for the week?
I was going to say 2 and 5. I'm going to be a little more optimistic than that. I'm going to go 3 and 4.
Do we win 2 in the Dodgers series?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going 2 and 5, 1 in each series. Hammy is 2 and 5 as well. I just don't see it this week. All right, folks, that is the show. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as iTunes or Stitcher, so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comment section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk, and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.